From 2008 to 2012, Man vs. Food was a ratings powerhouse for the Travel Channel, and it made the show's host Adam Richman a household name. It highlighted the world of competitive eating and some of the most famous diner food challenges, all through the eyes and stomach of an amateur. You either loved it or loathed it, but there's a lot you might not know about Adam Richman and the show that gave him his big break. Doctor's approval. Richman never formally trained as a competitive eater before he landed the Man vs. Food gig. In fact, before he ate food for money, he was an actor and Yale Drama School graduate who appeared in numerous bit roles. Because of his eating and experience, Richman checked in with doctors ahead of time, saying in a 2010 live chat with ESPN, "I went to specialists ahead of time because I wanted to start with a baseline of good health versus correcting bad health down the road." Richman may have discussed the risk with his doctors, but that didn't stop him from packing on the pounds during the show's 4-season run. Fewer meals, more workouts. Richman frequently skipped meals leading up to challenges to increase his eating capacity, but in a 2009 interview with 411 Mania, he said that because of the tight production schedule, it was sometimes difficult to prepare the way he wanted to before a challenge. "If I do have a day off, I don't eat, or eat very minimally, and I drink a lot of water and club soda to keep my stomach stretched and full and to keep myself hydrated." It isn't just the way he handles meals before a challenge, though. He continued, "The most important aspect is that I work out like a beast. I work out like a beast the night before and the morning of.
I lift things up and put them down."
They can't all be favorites. In 2015, Richman did an Ask Me Almost Anything chat on Reddit and spilled the beans on some of the things fans have been wondering for years, including his favorite and least favorite challenges. While his favorite challenge was Humpy's Alaskan Ale House's Kodiak Arrest, his least favorite was a challenge he faced and failed at Munchie's 420 Cafe in Sarasota, Florida. Unlike the episodes that see Richman plow his way through gargantuan meals, this was the smallest challenge on the show: 10 little chicken wings.
These are fire in your whole wings.
Richman had to eat 10 wings in 20 minutes without drinking milk. He got through 2 before tossing in the towel. Richman says it was his least favorite challenge not because he failed, but because he said the owner allegedly cheated by surprising him with dangerously spicy food. Heat versus quantity. Most of Richman's challenges fall into 2 categories, heat and quantity, but which is worse? Turns out it's complicated. Apparently, heat challenges are easier if the dish uses whole peppers instead of pepper extract. With extract, it's just heat for the sake of heat, instead of a flavor-filled heat. He told The Guardian, "A good spicy challenge strikes a balance between flavor and fear. Quantity challenges are also apparently no big deal as long as they don't have a lot of starchy ingredients. It's the fried foods, the fries, and the potatoes that make these more difficult."
I'm gonna be honest, I can't put another bite of this meat in my mouth.
Truly a sucky experience. Although Richman's least favorite challenge reportedly involved cheating, the worst challenge he's ever done was a smothered and covered breakfast burrito. In this case, Richman shared during his ESPN chat that the 7-pound breakfast burrito wasn't his only nemesis. "I was extremely sick with a 101 fever, a bronchial and sinus infection. Add to that I hate chunks of ham and green pepper in food, and that dish had both. Truly a sucky experience."
I was dying earlier today, and then I died. Now I'm dead.
Birthday suit photo shoot. It's funny to think the dude who would do competitive eating challenges while wearing a t-shirt, flannel, and a jacket would bear it all in a magazine. But Richman wanted to show off his newly fit body in UK's Cosmopolitan in June 2014. He was proud of the spread, saying, "To go from hating the way I look to being a Cosmo centerfold is a profound honor." He added that suddenly being seen as eye candy was a nice experience. Richman's infamous rant. After retiring from Man vs. Food in 2012, the Travel Channel was set to debut Richman's next endeavor, Man Finds Food, in the summer of 2014. But the plug was temporarily pulled on the show after the newly svelte star used the now-banned hashtag Pinspiration on Instagram, a tag that is often used by the pro-anorexia community. Richman went on a tear after users called him out on its use. During his rant, Richman not only used obscenities to refer to people, but went so far as to encourage self-harm among those who were calling him out. Months later, the show finally found its way to the Travel Channel, but was renamed Secret Eats with Adam Richman for the 2nd season. Why Richman really retired. Rumors swirled after Richman retired from Man vs. Food, but he told The Guardian that the decision to retire from Man vs. Food was all his, not the network's. The simplest way to put it is to say that the spectacle diminishes over time. Richman added that he wanted to be ahead of the game and quit before it got too boring. Rumors that he stepped away from the show for his health also circulated, but Richman told the BBC not only was that not the case, but he was shocked at how many sick people wanted to believe he'd been forced into retirement by illness.
"But I'm not sick. Let me prove it to you."
Popularizing the food challenge. If you've ever thought I can do that while watching Richmond down a massive amount of food, you can give it a try. There are thousands of food challenges out there, and according to Food Challenges, a site that strives to list them all, that's thanks to mostly Man vs. Food. Between 2008 and 2015, more than 2,300 food challenges popped up across the US. It goes farther than that too. More than 15 countries have also adopted the idea that stuffing yourself silly can be entertainment. Thanks to the popularity of Man vs. Food, you can now find food challenges across Britain as well as in Thailand, India, France, Sweden, Australia, and Belgium.
There's nothing quite like turning on a cooking show and hearing the soothing sounds of Gordon Ramsay screaming at a befuddled chef. One of Ramsay's most popular profanity-riddled shows was Kitchen Nightmares, where the hot-tempered Scottish chef helps struggling restaurants, mainly by shouting at them about fresh produce and frozen appetizers. By the end of each episode, the restaurant's inedible food and subpar service were usually transformed and saved from extinction, at least temporarily. Even though it went off the air in 2014, there are still plenty of behind-the-scenes secrets that you probably never knew about the popular restaurant makeover show. Here's the untold truth of Fox's Kitchen Nightmares. The nightmare's over. Although Ramsay spent a glorious 6.5 seasons transforming restaurants from one-star duds into passable eateries, apparently his professional magic wore off quickly. In 2014, shortly after Kitchen Nightmares ended, the Daily Mail reported that 60% of the restaurants that appeared on the show had closed. A spokesperson for Ramsay said at the time, "You don't ask to take part in a show called Kitchen Nightmares if your restaurant business is booming, and therefore it is not surprising that many of the restaurants which Gordon had visited over the 10 years are now closed." As of 2018, only 15 out of the 77 that appeared on the show between 2007 and 2014 are still open. The unluckiest restaurant. While most of the restaurants didn't exactly go on to have successful runs, some of the restaurants fared worse than others. According to the Daily Mail, one restaurant, the Black Pearl in New York, actually closed just 4 days after their episode aired. But Leela's in Pomona, California takes the cake. They closed before viewers even saw the episode. According to Screen Rant, the restaurant already faced struggles before Ramsay got in the door and was facing bankruptcy after only 8 months in the business. After the episode was over, a message flashed on viewers' screens saying, "The restaurant's debts were too much and it closed." Ruined restaurant. Although many of the restaurants featured on the show were happy to receive Ramsay's help, one chef in particular didn't mince words when it came to criticizing the changes the chef and his team made. Season 6's John Chapman, the owner of Chappie's on Church, told the National Enquirer, "It was truly a kitchen nightmare for me. Gordon Ramsay destroyed my business."
It looks like Chappie took a crappie in my gumbo.
Chapman said that Ramsay redid the entire menu and that business subsequently went from about 200 customers a night to a mere table of patrons per evening. Chappie's on Church closed in June 2013 for non-payment of taxes, only a month after the episode aired. Not staged. The Amy's Baking Company episode of Kitchen Nightmares is probably the most infamous in the show's history, and the conflict was so severe that the crew didn't even get to complete their transformation. The owners of the now-closed eatery were notorious for threatening customers who left bad Yelp reviews and for posting long rants on social media.
"You are a little pansy. Get out of here. Don't you ever come back here. You little weenie. Keep walking."
Apparently, the drama in the episode wasn't heightened for entertainment purposes either. One Medium blogger who was there during the filming of the 2-part episode said, "The epic blowouts were 100% true to form and not doctored for TV."
I am going to really hurt somebody if they send back my cake.
Real Ramsay. Ramsay may be infamous for his nightmarish behavior on his shows, but apparently most of his on-air tantrums and profanity-laced rants are hammed up for the camera.
When you work like a pig, you French pig!
According to one of the show's crew members who did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit in 2013, you'll rarely see Ramsay get angry when the cameras are turned off. The crew member explained, "He only gets mad when he has a reason to. Otherwise, he's a very funny and nice dude." You can even see that in all of his UK shows. The US versions like to selectively edit to play up the drama. Additionally, Ramsay may not actually be as involved with the participants as you'd think. One couple who appeared on the show in Season 3 told the New Jersey Record in 2010 that they barely conversed with the chef at all, saying, "You have no interaction with Ramsay at all. He comes with a very big machine of assistants and helpers. The only time I ever spent any time with him was on camera." Ramsay's regret. If you're a Kitchen Nightmares superfan who misses the show, Ramsay feels your pain. The popular show that launched Ramsay's TV career ended in 2014 in part because Ramsay was tired of the restaurants he fixed, reverting back to their old ways and failing. He told the New York Daily News in 2017, "I got fed up with kitchen nightmares because I was getting so I woke up one morning and thought, I'm done." He added his remorse at the decision to pull his show off the air, which was admittedly made in anger, saying, "Yes, it was wrong to pull my own show off the air, but that's it." The good news? Fans don't need to rely on old reruns to catch glimpses of their favorite restaurant makeover show. Kitchen Nightmares is back in a new form. Gordon Ramsay's 24 Hours to Hell and Back premiered on Fox in June 2018.
On your marks, get set, bake!
If you're familiar with those words, then you're probably a fan of the Great British Baking Show. However, from the modest grand prize to how all of those dishes actually get done, there's a lot more to this televised baking competition than you'd ever guess. If you've ever heard your friends talking about the Great British Bake Off, then yes, it's the same thing as the Great British Baking Show. The competition first aired in Britain under the name The Great British Bake Off, and incorporating the term bake off was very much on purpose. Because this is a contest, producers needed something to convey the competitive nature of the show. Sure, all of the contestants are lovely and sweet as pie, but at the end of the day, only one winner can prevail. As the show made its way to the United States, Bake Off was already being used, taken by the Pillsbury Bake Off since it first started in 1949. PBS didn't want there to be any confusion in the market or issues with copyright, and quite frankly, Pillsbury was not open to sharing the name. But don't worry, the episodes are exactly the same. There's just a difference in the opening credits depending on where in the world you're watching it. Certainly you've heard of MasterChef, where the winner of $250,000 is announced in a shower of fireworks. Or perhaps Nailed It and the $10,000 that contestants have the chance to take home. Well, the Great British Baking Show offers none of that flash. Or cash.
No, shut up.
As it turns out, the only physical prize the contestants are vying for is a bouquet of flowers and a cake stand. Yep, that's it. Sure, it's a beautiful big bouquet and an etched glass cake stand, but wouldn't you think their hard work would earn them a little something more? Luckily, there's quite a bit of opportunity that comes along with the championship title. Previous contestant Martha Collison told The Sun that part of winning the competition is that you become, in her words, a national treasure just by doing it, because everyone in Britain loves the Bake Off so much. And for many previous winners, that popularity has certainly paid off in big ways, helping them to move forward in their baking careers with cookbook offers, speaking engagements, and even TV shows. Of course, some contestants aren't seeking the spotlight, and they started baking with very simple goals in mind.
Rahul moved to the UK 8 years ago.
Hello, guys.
And now bakes regularly to make new friends.
However, being crowned a champion on a show of kindred spirits has elevated and expanded their lives in ways that a cash prize could never match. At first glance, the setting of the Great British Baking Show is pretty similar to any other cooking show, with stations set up for each contestant. It's a lovely decorated kitchen with plenty of light. But unlike other cooking shows, those stations are actually set up in a giant tent pitched on the lawn of the notable Welford Park property in Berkshire. And really, that's exactly how it was intended. The show's creators wanted the feeling of a rural baking competition set in a village fete. Fete is a British term to describe a public gathering, which is typically held outside or in a tent, featuring games, entertainment, and the peddling of wares, and plenty of things to eat. The tent gives the feeling of a large festival, allowing contestants the opportunity to present their bakes in a friendly environment. Paul Hollywood. In addition to having a fun, recognizable last name, Hollywood is also an expert baker, and he has been with the Great British Baking Show since its inception. Hollywood is a world-famous baker, having held positions at some of Britain's top hotels, owning his own bakery, and writing several baking books. He's been one of the show's most prominent players, and easily the most intimidating presence in the tent. Despite his tenure, some fans were not too happy with him after a remark he made during Season 10. When describing an upcoming technical challenge which features puff pastry, plenty of cream, and caramel, Hollywood made a casual comment about the French dessert.
Diabetes on a plate.
And with that remark, some viewers with type 1 diabetes felt that Hollywood was being offensive. Paul's counterpart, Prue Leith, noted that the dessert was worth every calorie, perhaps to lighten the scene. But it didn't stop upset viewers from speaking their minds and posting notes to Hollywood on social media to please refrain from joking about the disease. Hollywood quickly apologized on Instagram, saying, "A remark regarding diabetes I made on tonight's show was thoughtless, and I meant no harm." Any baker knows that half of their success in baking is thanks to their oven. Traveling to a friend's place or baking for the family at mom and dad's house for the holidays can certainly yield different results than what you practiced at home. And that's the exact challenge that contestants face on the show. The bakers have to get used to a new oven, but the producers level the playing field by testing every single oven before they begin to film each season and before any bakers enter the tent. One employee on the show, Georgia May, told The Guardian that each of the ovens is checked by popping a Victoria sponge cake into it to test for consistency. May says that they have a runner at each station with their cake mix ready, so all cakes are going in at the same time, ensuring they're properly tested for timing, temperature, and levelness. Of course, this is the Great British Baking Show, so even if the ovens are tested and maintained, you should always expect the unexpected. If you've watched the Great British Baking Show, you've surely noticed the stunning illustrations featured throughout each episode. As a contestant's creation is described, noting its flavors and decorations, a beautiful illustration accompanies it, giving viewers a look at what's to come. And that artwork is all thanks to one man, Tom Hovey. Hovey has been the illustrator for the show since the beginning, and he's now illustrated over 1,000 cakes, complete with intricate details. Hovey told the BBC that he gets the photos from each of the bakes after an episode is filmed, and then he gets to drawing. He has honed his craft over the years, delivering the final illustrations for each episode about a week after receiving the photos. He draws all of the illustrations by hand, starting with an outline. He then scans them and colors the pieces digitally to provide the finished product that we all see on the show. Baking is a pretty specific hobby. For some people, just baking a cake at home can be stressful enough. So can you imagine what it would be like to do it on television, among competitors and judges? It's not easy to stay focused. Contestants have to block out the constant chatter of other bakers, cameras constantly in their faces, and gentle reminders from the hosts about time.
Bakers, you have 1 hour. 1 hour left. Bakers, 1 hour.
However, the biggest drawback of baking in a tent is that you have no control over the temperature, and temperature can dramatically affect baked goods. The show's home economist, Fiona Moore, told the BBC that the temperature is probably the biggest challenge on the show. The weather changes often, making some of the bakes much more of a challenge. If the bakers need warmth to proof the dough for bread, it's usually too cold. But when they're working with chocolate, it's normally too hot and it's melting. It's a constant battle with temperature and distractions to make sure they're still presenting their best possible bake to the discerning judges. Unlike many other shows, the Great British Baking Show is filmed on the weekends. This is due in part to allow contestants to work their day jobs and spend time with their families while competing. A resident of the Welford estate where the show is filmed told The Sun that it actually only takes 3 days to set up the tent, add some flooring, and put together each kitchen station. The set isn't used throughout the week, but once the weekend hits, it's game on. And while it's wonderful to film over the weekend, allowing the bakers to continue living their normal lives during the week, there's one caveat to the filming process. Former 2013 contestant and winner Frances Quinn told Cosmopolitan that contestants actually have to wear the same clothes for 2 days in a row to maintain consistency throughout filming. Contestants get a new apron to change into for the second day of filming, but otherwise, outfits are all the same. Whether you're baking a simple dessert for yourself or hosting an elaborate potluck for an army of friends and family, it's always a hassle to do the dishes. So can you imagine what the situation looks like in the Great British Baking Show's tent? With just a single challenge, the contestants could use hundreds of plates, bowls, pots, and pans. Certainly the production staff just loads everything into industrial machines, hits a few buttons, and leaves it to wash, right? Or they have a crew of little helpers who are constantly scraping, cleaning, and stacking dishes. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Really?
According to the BBC, there are no dishwashing machines on set because it would be way too noisy for filming. Plus, plenty of the ingredients used in the bakes, like sticky caramel, don't normally come off when you use a machine. So a single crew member is tasked with washing all of the dirty dishes from each of the baking rounds by hand. And it's no easy feat. Every season, the show's dishwasher goes through 1,000 dishcloths, 80 sponges, and 8 gallons of soap.
Is it bull?
It might be hard to believe, but one of the show's key players earned a bit of fame early in his career as a swamp creature. In 2018, the show switched things up, and the original cast of Paul, Mary, Sue, and Mel was no more. Paul Hollywood stayed, but a new cast was introduced with Prue Leith as his judging partner, along with Noel Fielding and Sandy Tosvig as hosts. While some viewers might think Fielding is a bit eccentric with his bold outfits and unusual sense of humor, this role is nothing compared to what he was doing before he started co-hosting the show. Fielding has been a successful comedian and artist in the UK for more than a decade. You might have seen him as a reclusive goth on the IT Crowd or in his own brilliantly surreal show, Luxury Comedy. But his biggest claim to fame was as a member of a comedy duo, the Mighty Boosh, and one of his most popular characters was Old Greg, a lonely merman who lives in a swamp. A clip of Fielding as Old Greg went viral in 2008 and currently has more than 9 million views. It even spawned a catchphrase.
I'm out, Greg.
What?
I'm out, Greg.
It's just a few simple words, but they're an important part of a journey that eventually led Fielding into Britain's most beloved tent. There's a ridiculous amount of delicious breads, pastries, cakes, and more being baked every season. Each item is evaluated, and there's certainly a slice or two taken from the finished bake for the judges. But where does the rest of it end up? Don't worry, every little crumb is enjoyed.
So far, we've consumed 13 sandwich cakes, 497,000 breadsticks, 11 tartlets, 2 tray bakes, and a large macaroon.
Fiona Moore, who runs the behind-the-scenes logistics of the tent, has the wonderful job of dispersing the leftover baked goods. According to Moore, everything gets eaten, but it must be dispersed in an orderly fashion. She told the BBC, "It's important for the bakers to eat what they've slaved over, so after each challenge, I make up a baker's basket to go to their lunchroom." But once the bakers get their fill, the rest of the leftovers go to the crew to be enjoyed, which has to be the sweetest perk of the job.
His real name is Buddy Valastro, but most people know him as the Cake Boss, the down-to-earth baker who creates some of the wildest, most extravagant cakes in the country. It's an odd niche, perhaps, but it's one that he's made work beyond most people's wildest dreams. Today, he sits at the top of an empire built on frosting, but the climb to the top wasn't all sweet. Here's a look at the untold truth of the Cake Boss. All in the family. The Cake Boss comes by his love of cake naturally. His father, also named Buddy Valastro, emigrated to America from Sicily with nothing, not even a pair of shoes. He saved up enough to eventually buy his own bakery, and when he passed away on his son's 17th birthday, the boy who would become Cake Boss dropped out of school to take over the family business. Valastro also had close ties with his mother, baking his very first cake for her at the age of 12. Sadly, she passed away in 2017. The Cake Boss told People that he hadn't yet been able to bring himself to visit their old family bakery since her passing. "I know that when I go there, I'll definitely break down. That place has got so much history, and that was my mom's spot. That was her store." Trial and error. Valastro may be an expert baker now, but at first he struggled to master his father's famous lobster tail recipe. He failed over and over and over, until, according to the Cake Boss himself, his father's spirit eventually came to him in a dream and explained how to make it. Divine inspiration aside, Valastro told the Houston Press that he feels the kind of experience you get through trial and error is worth more than any formal education. There's a business method and education they don't teach in school that you learn from being on the job and dealing with things. In school, you learn to make 5 cakes. So now you're a cake genius? Come to the bakery and do 1,000 fondant layers in a week. You learn, you know? Those cakes. The downside to trial and error is the error part. And Valastro told the blog for Michaels that he's had his fair share of disasters, the biggest being the complete collapse of a carousel cake he made for Atlantic City's Steel Pier. "I just felt horrible. I let my customer down, and that's the worst thing you can do." And sometimes, even when he gets the cake right, it turns out to be a mess. That was the case with the 400-pound cake he made for Chicago's Field Museum, which was unceremoniously dumped in the trash after the event because it had been sitting out all day. Still, most of the time the cake boss is able to make sure things go right, even if it costs a pretty penny. His most expensive cake? That would be a cake studded with diamonds and sapphires that was worth an estimated $30 million. Let's hope they didn't throw that one in the dumpster too. Sweet and savory. He may be known for his sweet concoctions, but Valastro also has a savory side, which is on full display in his Italian restaurant, Buddy V's Ristorante. He has locations at the Venetian in Las Vegas and at the Sands Bethlehem Casino Resort in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He told Eater that the menu is inspired by his grandmother's cooking. When you come here, I want you to taste the food, and I want you to remember your grandmother. Controversy. Valastro has had his fair share of controversy. In 2012, for instance, Cake Boss guest Carmen Carrera was infuriated after the show turned her appearance into a shockingly unfunny joke, mocking the trans community.
That's a man, baby.
After media firestorm, Valastro issued a public apology that read, in part, "I was wrong to use the words I did. I am a supporter of gay rights and equality, and while I regret the situation and my choice of words, I am thankful to have received this feedback and the opportunity to learn from this mistake." It wasn't his only mistake, though. 2 years later, in 2014, Valastro again made headlines for the wrong reason when he was arrested for driving while intoxicated. He compounded his error by trying to use his celebrity to get out of the charges, telling the cops, "You can't arrest me. I'm the cake boss." Needless to say, nobody was impressed, and he again had to issue a public apology for his bad behavior. Icing on the cake. It's not all bad with the cake boss, though. Valastro also has his charitable side. Besides donating Zeppelis and bread to his local churches each year, all of the cakes from the next great baker are donated to homeless shelters as well. And he has also been active in raising money for disaster relief as well.
I just want to send my prayers and hopes for all the people down in Texas and the whole Gulf area who are suffering from Hurricane Harvey.
Still in the family. For Valastro, it all began with family, and it all ends with family, which is why so many of his family members work with him. His brother-in-law Joey Fogno told Business News Daily that it's a blessing. "We spend 8 to 10 hours every day at work and then hang out with each other at night. I feel lucky." Valastro told People that his favorite thing to do is stay home and spend time with his wife and 4 children. Cooking, of course. Hey, he's not called the cake boss for nothing.
The typical US bar goes through ups and downs, and it's Jon Taffer's job on the reality show Bar Rescue to take a failing bar and mold it into something that will work. Sometimes that's a drastic change, sometimes it's a change of attitude, but it's always good TV. But is it real? Here's a look at the untold truth of Bar Rescue. The Troubadour in the NFL. So how did Taffer land this show in the first place? Well, his resume is quite extensive, managing bars and coffee shops on both coasts before opening his own bar in 1989. But probably the most famous bar Taffer ran was the Troubadour in West Hollywood, where Bob Dylan allegedly first plugged in, Elton John made his US debut, and where John Lennon and Harry Nilsson were thrown out for heckling the Smothers Brothers. And he also has ties to the creation of NFL's wildly popular Sunday Ticket. Back when Taffer ran a sports bar, executives with ComSat approached Taffer to find out how well out-of-market NFL games would do at sports bars. Taffer wrote up a market analysis, and ComSat took the idea to the NFL. They loved it so much they just decided to do it themselves, hiring Taffer away. He worked on the advisory board for NFL Entertainment for a few years, so while he didn't technically invent NFL Sunday Ticket, he certainly shaped what it is today. How they picked the bars. The actual task of getting on the show is pretty straightforward. Bar owners simply fill out an application, but producers sometimes choose bars based on geographic location, canvassing specific cities for potential fixer-uppers. Fake news. Despite his broad experience, plenty of people don't like Taffer, in part because he says stuff that's just flat out wrong, like when he claimed that tequila is inherently made from mezcal, which mescaline, the hallucinogenic drug, is made from. So tequila can have a hallucinogenic component. You might be talking to someone who's not there. One problem, that's totally not true, as tequila and mescaline come from different plants, something an expert on alcohol should probably know. There have been failures. Just because Taffer and his crew of expert mixologists enter your tavern, it doesn't mean that you're on easy street. In fact, through the first 3 seasons, about a quarter of the bars rescued were actually not rescued at all, and closed instead. Schaefer's Bar and Grill summed up the whole experience in a Facebook post writing, "We should have stuck to our gut when #BarRescue called us the first time. Our answer was no. They should be called #BarFuckups, because we could have done everything they did ourselves without drama and them telling us what to say. And that's a bar that's still in business." Pirates Tavern of Silver Springs, Maryland, didn't make it and also lashed out, blaming Taffer for the bar closing and going as far as calling the show fake.
I think Johnny Taffer's really stupid. We take it off the sign and burn and drink. The best thing I do it in my life.
Speaking of which, Fake, fake, fake. Lots of people who have been on the show are happy to explain just how fake it is. Like Schaefer's Bar and Grill owner Ryan Burks, who said, "During my first interview, I was asked how much money we are losing each month. My exact words to the producer were, 'What would you like me to say?' Producer's response, 'For our story, you were losing $10,000 a month and losing your house and closing down next month,' all of which isn't true." And the folks from Pirates Tavern said just about the same thing. It was basically coerced and staged to be an opening act for a re-rescue. I was told to bring in several changes of clothes to make it appear that filming covered several days. As usual, they brought in a bunch of extras to fill the house, and we were told what to say and with whom to speak. The shooting schedule is intense. Once a bar does agree to appear on the show, things move pretty quickly. Taffer and crew take 5 days to complete a bar rescue. That includes Taffer evaluating the actual bar being redone and scouting competing bars. Each day is about a 12-hour shoot, with the second day being the crazy one. That's where he yells at the bar owners and tells them what a horrible job they're doing.
Get this! This place is dangerous, for Christ's sake!
According to a Reddit post written by someone claiming to be a bar rescue producer, hidden cameras are placed before the full crew arrives, and the normal pre-production shooting takes place then as well. By day 5, the bar is back open with the remodel, and that's that. Shut it down is trademarked. Any TV show is only as good as its catchphrase. Taffer stumbled into one when he began shouting, "Shut it down" anytime a bar is in violation of a health code, or pretty much any other time he feels like it. Taffer wisely trademarked the phrase, making him the exclusive seller of Shut It Down merchandise. Controversy. In 2013, Taffer and the bar rescue crew went to Nashville to save the Pit and Barrel, run by a short-tempered man named Chris Farrell. After learning his lesson from the hosts, a graphic claimed Farrell had changed his ways and hadn't lost his temper with his staff. Before the episode aired, though, Farrell was arrested for fatally shooting country singer Wayne Mills during an argument at the bar. Spike TV announced they were going to pull the episode, but then ran it anyway, leading to widespread outrage. A jury eventually found Farrell guilty of second-degree murder. He received a 20-year sentence for the crime.
Late chef and author Anthony Bourdain was one of the most charismatic and outspoken figures to ever hit the small screen. His first foray into TV was on Food Network's A Cook's Tour, but Travel Channel's Emmy-winning No Reservations was the show that really put Bourdain on the map. Launched in 2005, the irreverent food and travel docuseries made Bourdain a household name and paved the way for his more politically charged work on CNN's Parts Unknown. Here's a few things you may not know about No Reservations. The pitch. One of the reasons Bourdain moved from Food Network to Travel Channel was because of a falling out with the network's higher-ups. Bourdain was on a book tour in Spain when a famous local chef invited him into his kitchen to film an episode, but Food Network rejected the idea. He made the episode anyway and sold it to Travel Channel, who had no qualms about running it, and it later aired as a No Reservations special. Bourdain told The New Yorker that his initial pitch for the show was basically, "I travel around the world, I eat a lot of and basically do whatever I want." Years after Bourdain left the Food Network, he openly criticized many of its chefs and shows. According to Bourdain, the network's biggest stars are largely intolerable, saying that Emeril Lagasse is unwatchable, Sandra Lee is pure evil, and Rachel Ray, quote, sells the smug reassurance that mediocrity is quite enough. Slow start. Travel Channel was an underperforming network when No Reservations was first conceived, and was probably best known for carrying of the World Poker Tour, if you're into that stuff. The pilot episode of No Reservations, set in France, reached fewer than 1 million viewers. The second episode of the series, featuring Bourdain in Iceland, also bombed. Instead of canceling the show, network execs decided to make it even bigger and bolder, and let Bourdain's personality really shine through. A former executive at Travel Channel told The Washington Post, "I knew this was someone viewers would respond to. They just had to see him." The strategy worked. Soon, viewers were tuning in not only to see where Bourdain would travel to next, but to see Bourdain himself and, over time, some incredible guest stars. A mainstay of the show was Bourdain's friend and fellow chef Eric Ripert. Ripert first appeared on A Cook's Tour and would continue to make appearances on his shows until Bourdain's passing. It was Ripert who found Bourdain in his hotel room while the two were filming an episode of Parts Unknown in France. Changing lives. Xi'an Famous Foods started as a simple noodle stand. After being featured on No Reservations in 2007, business started booming. Years later, the owner's son, Jason Wang, was able to tell Bourdain how the lives of everyone in his family had changed. He wrote on Twitter, "I approached Tony and told him, while he may have no idea what he has done for our family and business by simply saying he enjoyed the food, I wanted him to know it helped bring our family out from living in one room in Flushing to living the American dream." The restaurant paid homage to Bourdain by donating their earnings on the day Bourdain died to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. They raised more than $73,000 and thanked their customers on Twitter for helping them honor Bourdain's memory. In a 2018 piece for Elle, filmmaker Danya Ahamnari, who guided Bourdain during his 2008 visit to Saudi Arabia, wrote about what he had done for her country. To this day, 10 years later, I'm still told by people I meet that the only good thing they see online about Saudi Arabia is the episode of No Reservations. People were hungry for real stories from Saudi Arabia, about real Saudis, and Tony finally gave us a voice. Alhamnari added that more than simply filming her country, Bourdain genuinely tried to get to know the culture and the people. He experienced everything with an open mind and an open heart and relayed it very beautifully in the episode. Road tested. To do what Bourdain did on No Reservations took not only an incredible sense of adventure, but also an iron stomach. He swallowed everything from a warthog anus that had been cooked without a thorough cleaning in Namibia to fermented shark in Iceland. Those two dishes topped the list of foods Bourdain said he would never eat again, along with airplane food in general. He once told Time magazine, "No one has ever felt better after eating plain food." According to Bourdain, the secret to not getting sick on the road is to simply eat what the locals eat. He shared with Newsweek what he learned while filming No Reservations. "I've long found that the person on our crew most likely to get sick is the one who is sort of wary of street food and local food. They always get sick from eating the breakfast buffet at the hotel. You eat in crowded local joints, and chances are you're going to be okay. It might be sound advice, but you really can't blame members of the crew for not wanting to eat raw seal eyeball."
Not bad.
Double duty. Filming more than a dozen episodes each season of a show that requires you to travel around the globe can be taxing. Bourdain would often be out of the country for 250 days out of the year. To make things worse, while filming No Reservations, he also filmed 2 seasons of a sort of spin-off show called The Layover from 2011 to 2013. While Bourdain and the crew would spend several days in each location for No Reservations, on The Layover, they would only have 24 to 48 hours to build a story around each destination. Bourdain told Eater, "I like doing what I do, and I like doing 16 episodes of No Reservations a year, but The Layover was hard on me. It was hard with that much food and liquor in a 2-day shooting period, back to back to back, and that's after shooting No Reservations. No second takes." One of the most endearing aspects of No Reservations was Bourdain's frank and outspoken personality. The sincerity he brought to the screen helped viewers relate to him, and Bourdain recognized this. While most of reality TV is anything but, Bourdain didn't believe in faking anything on the show. Over the years, he worked to eliminate what he called painful fakery. He told Forbes, "You won't see me entering the house or the restaurants meeting the chef. We don't do retakes. It ruins everything." Bourdain added that he omitted these kinds of shots and kept everything to one take because he didn't want his hosts to think he was insincere. It's already an artificial, weird construct, but with that kind of nonsense, it's only going to get worse. We hope this makes an essentially artificial process less artificial. Full circle. After years of filming in exciting cities around the world, fans expected No Reservations to go out with a bang. It did, but not in the way they expected. Instead of going to some remote location, Anthony Bourdain kept things local. Born in New York City and raised in New Jersey, Bourdain never spent much time getting to know the nearby New York City borough of Brooklyn. For the show's final episode, he decided to explore it. It was a sharp change from the international destinations viewers had come to expect from the show, but in many ways, Brooklyn was a foreign country for Bourdain. The TV personality spent so much time traveling for his show that his own city became something of a stranger. Setting the final episode in Brooklyn also drove home Bourdain's belief that travel is important, but that you don't need to go far to have an adventure. One of Bourdain's most beloved quotes ends the episode and declares his travel philosophy.
If I'm an advocate for anything, it's to move as far as you can, as much as you can, across the ocean or simply across the river.
Switching gears, the final episode of No Reservations was the end of an era, but also the start of a new one. Bourdain didn't end the show to quit traveling and retire, but rather to travel to even more destinations. He moved to CNN and began work on Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, which carried on the spirit of No Reservations and its predecessor, A Cook's Tour, but with a decidedly more political edge.
So there's life after coal.
There's life after coal.
Bourdain told Adweek after No Reservations wrapped, "There are a lot of places where me and my team have been wanting to make television for a long time and haven't been able to, and CNN has the infrastructure and inclination to make those places doable." Bourdain would end up working on Parts Unknown until his death. CNN mourned the loss of Bourdain, as did the rest of the world. The network expressed their thoughts in a statement that reflected what millions around the world also felt. His talents never cease to amaze us, and we will miss him very much. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255.
On screen, Bizarre Foods might just be about exotic dishes, but behind the scenes, it ended Andrew Zimmern's marriage, gave him a rare disease, and led to a food TV rivalry. Keep watching for even more strange details. Andrew Zimmern went down a long and bumpy path in becoming a TV food celebrity before his successful show Bizarre Foods hit the airwaves. He found early success as a chef in New York City, his hometown, but substance abuse issues led him to relocate to Minneapolis in an effort to restart his life. He became a dishwasher at Minneapolis restaurant Untold and quickly worked his way up to executive chef, earning national credits for his cooking. In an interview with Larry King, Zimmern said of his past history of addiction,
I think that's what compels me to, I sleep 5 hours a night. I own 3 or 4 businesses. I devote a tremendous amount of time to service.
His success in the kitchen led to several jobs in local media in the Twin Cities, as well as an on-camera cooking gig on several HGTV shows. Zimmern remembers that he was paid a meager $50 per episode for his early work. Although his segments on forgotten HGTV shows like Typical Mary Ellen may not have paid well, they gave him a foothold in the cable TV world. Zimmern took advantage of an opportunity to shoot a pilot for a food travel documentary series, and the rest is history. Andrew Zimmern and his now ex-wife, Rashia Haas, seemed like a perfectly matched pair. She shares his interest in food and has even written recipes for the New York Times. But as anyone who travels a lot for work can tell you, the distance takes a toll on even the strongest relationships. The production schedule for Zimmern's show, combined with his side hustles of running a restaurant group, writing books, and starting a production company, left little time for his wife and son. The chef considers himself to blame for the couple's 2018 split. Although Andrew and Rashia are no longer together, they separated amicably and they still co-parent their son. 2 years after getting divorced, Zimmern praised his ex on Instagram, calling her the bravest mom I know. It seems like he's fulfilling the promise he made to the New York Times, to be the best dad and the best ex I can be. According to Forbes, Zimmern travels 260 days a year shooting Bizarre Foods. That hectic pace requires some strategizing, so Zimmern keeps bags ready so he can head out the front door to far-flung locales at a moment's notice. He often encounters varied climates over the course of a few days, so one bag gets packed with a variety of clothes, from warm winter gear to short-sleeve shirts to formal wear. Another bag totes all of his shoes so he can easily change from hiking boots to loafers depending on the needs of a particular shoot. And Zimmern prefers to stay plugged into technology no matter where he is. The road is his home and his office, so he brings all the necessary technology to check email, make calls, and watch TV on the go. The amount of preparation Zimmern puts into his travel routine would put a Boy Scout to shame. Bizarre Foods focuses on Andrew Zimmern's reactions to wonderful culinary creations, but the people who keep the show running behind the scenes don't always get to taste. Sometimes the crew gets lucky, other times they have to rely on limited snacks they can find in the remote areas where they film the show.
I wait whole lifetimes to come into rooms like this, to meet people like you, to eat food like this.
Zimmern told an interviewer about a particularly grim trip to the backcountry in Mississippi and Louisiana, where his crew lived off of knockoff McMuffins and gas station peanut butter sandwiches. Fortunately for the long-suffering Bizarre Foods production team, their famous boss took pity on them after they endured weeks of watching him feast while they ate Wonder Bread. When the crew arrived in New Orleans, Zimmern bought the whole team a luxurious dinner at a nice restaurant in the city. The directors and editors of Bizarre Foods do a good job of making the segments seem real and unstaged, but it requires a lot of careful planning, according to Mediaite. It's difficult to capture the authentic vibe of a place when Andrew Zimmern constantly gets mobbed by fans. The producers have to strategize to get people to act naturally when there's an 8-person camera crew around. Mediaite reported that producers ended up paying for the dinner of the group sitting behind Zimmern at a Korean barbecue restaurant so they would stay for the the whole time cameras were rolling. The Korean barbecue segment got edited down to around 5 minutes of TV time, but it took over 2 hours to shoot. Crew needs to shoot multiple takes of simple actions like walking into a restaurant to make sure every camera angle is up to par. With all of the stopping and starting that shooting a TV show requires, it's remarkable how well Zimmern projects spontaneity and informality in his on-screen persona. You might expect delicacies like cow urine, fermented shark, and dung beetles to wreak havoc on Andrew Zimmern's stomach, but his worst ever food illness came from something more pedestrian. He told a Reddit AMA that eating tainted cumin in Morocco in 2005 gave him a rare virus that still affects his health to this day. Although the initial effects of the virus have long since passed, it caused him to have bouts of a condition called burning mouth syndrome about once a year. Burning mouth syndrome can cause a scalding feeling on the inside of the mouth, excessive thirst, and numbness. It can also make you lose your sense of taste, which is tough for a professional TV food taster. According to the Mayo Clinic, you can mitigate the symptoms by staying away from spicy and sour foods, but that's not really an option for Zimmern. Despite the discomfort, he takes his diagnosis in stride, calling it a casualty of war. As the hosts of 2 shows with similar premises on the same network, it was natural for Andrew Zimmern and Anthony Bourdain to feel competitive with each other. Zimmern told Mashed in an exclusive interview that the rivalry never turned malicious. The 2 hosts helped each other out and pushed each other to become better. Zimmern remembers late nights swapping tips with Bourdain for getting access to difficult filming locations in Cuba and Syria. Zimmern said that he and Bourdain shared much more than just a love of food and travel. The 2 men both had children around the same time and went through struggles in their marriages. They were able to laugh together and share stories through it all. Naturally, Zimmern misses his late friend and wishes Bourdain was still able to provide commentary about world events. He expects the No Reservations star's influence to expand over the next several years as the people who grew up watching his show start to gain power in the food world. Sometimes the dishes on Bizarre Foods seem more appropriate for a scientific lab than for a travel docu-series. But Andrew Zimmern rarely gets intimidated by anything he's supposed to put in his mouth. His biggest fear on the show came in the episode Bizarre Foods Cajun Country, where he cooks with Alzina Toops. A grandmother in her 80s, Chef Toops doesn't look intimidating on the outside, but she's a towering figure in the world of Cajun food. The Southern Foodways Alliance praises her restaurant Alzina's, where she serves her famous dishes like crab meat lasagna and fig tart to 1 lucky party per night. According to Zimmern, she can also be a harsh critic in the kitchen, so he was quaking in his boots when she asked him to cook frog legs for her. Toops enjoyed his frog legs, but she did reprimand him for wasting meat when he helped her clean shrimp. He admired her reverence for the ingredients she works with and was happy to emerge from her kitchen relatively unscathed. Andrew Zimmern is a charismatic guy, and he usually has no problem getting the people he interacts with to warm up to him, but sometimes his friendly nature does more harm than good. Zimmern admitted in a Reddit AMA that, "The problem is, when I get really happy, I forget what I'm doing or where I am, and I happen to be a big hugger. And that causes awkwardness when he's interacting with devout Muslim women." The Embassy of the United Arab Emirates warns American travelers that observant Muslim women often prefer not to touch men who aren't their husbands or relatives, even to shake hands. Zimmern mentions that forgetting this rule got him into hot water in Fez, Morocco. Fortunately for him, he's usually able to play off this faux pas without serious consequences, but he's definitely made some people uncomfortable with his unsolicited hugs. Although Andrew Zimmern is welcomed with open arms in the countries he visits, he sometimes encounters unfriendly people. A Reddit user asked Zimmern if he ever experiences hostility abroad because of his Jewish American background. Zimmern said that he gets in more trouble for being American than being Jewish, but he doesn't let the hate diminish his pride for his home country. Zimmern claims, "It happens all the time. I wear my patriotism on my sleeve." When he's overseas, Zimmern admits that he uses his own behavior to counteract negative stereotypes about Americans.
How was that?
It's awesome.
Really?
Wow.
Okay, you're
Do I
going
have
for
seconds?
Zimmern views the act of visiting other places and sharing food as a way to encourage greater understanding between different civilizations. He told the Travel Channel that, "Food is the simplest way for me to learn about another culture. Share a meal with folks and it will change your life as you see what real people are thinking and feeling."
Iron Chef America was adapted from a hit Japanese show that had a cult following long before the US version ever hit the Food Network airwaves. But while the new version carried over many aspects of the original, Iron Chef America was still a phenomenon in its own right. Here are some things about the cooking competition series you might not know about.
It's gonna be unbelievable. You've never seen this before.
The chairman's stage history. The host of Japan's Iron Chef was Takeshi Kaga, and even before dishing out ingredients, he had a history of working on screen. Before becoming the fancy dinner party host for the show, he was actually an actor who'd been seen in films and TV shows since the 80s. And while the chairman of Iron Chef America, Mark Dacascos, also hails from the thespian realm, he's not as well known for that profession as Kaga was to Japanese audiences. Dacascos is actually an accomplished martial arts expert and actor, though, who's occasionally been spotted on TV's Hawaii Five-0. But for the most part, his other career was relatively unknown to US audiences, as he starred in mostly overseas features before becoming the chairman. Iron Chef USA. Iron Chef America wasn't the first time an American production company tried to remake the Japanese show. The original Iron Chef took itself seriously. It was about the food and the presentation. But Iron Chef USA didn't follow that formula quite so well. William Shatner played the chairman. And rather than having the chefs operate in the subdued atmosphere that was a signature of the original, Iron Chef USA was filmed in Las Vegas and sounded like there was a 5-drink minimum to loosen up the crowd. Also, whereas Iron Chef featured actors who had a knowledge of food and provided key critiques of the dishes, the Iron Chef USA judges were people with some small claim to fame whose commentaries left something to be desired.
It's really something that I've never tasted anything like it before, and I think it's great. It doesn't really matter to me what's in it, it tastes good.
Mercifully, Shatner's fluffy shirted performance and incredibly bad line delivery only lasted 2 episodes. Premeditated matchups. Part of the mystique of Iron Chef is the majestic rise of the Iron Chefs themselves. After the pageantry, the challenger chef stands before the Iron Chefs and measures them up. While it looks like there are 3 Iron Chefs on hand to choose from, it's really all just theater. The challenger chef picks the Iron Chef weeks in advance of the taping. The only chef that rises up the day of the taping is the one who is being chosen. The other chefs are stand-ins that look similar to the Iron Chefs. For example, if the producers need a stand-in for Bobby Flay, they just find another tall redhead not doing anything that day. Those Iron Chefs are too busy to show up and not be picked after all. Ingredients list. Another aspect of Iron Chef America that's partially faked is that while it looks like the ingredient reveal is a massive surprise,
today's secret ingredient is spinach!
Both chefs actually get hints about the secret ingredient well in advance of taping. Sometimes it's as blunt as producers telling the chefs that it's either buffalo or bass. At other times, the chefs simply pick something together. In addition to the available spices and seasonings, the chefs are given a $500 budget to spend on any specialty ingredients they want for their dish. Then they'll write different grocery lists for each possible secret ingredient, and the producers go out and purchase what the chefs need. So when chefs show up at the taping, all they really have to do is look at the ingredients to figure out what the secret ingredient is going to be before the chairman lets the audiences know. Tinkering with timing. As much as the show's ticking clock adds to the drama factor of Iron Chef America, the strict timing parameters seen on screen aren't exactly accurate. Some actions will probably be repeated, like Iron Chef Morimoto and his competitor repeatedly reaching for an ingredient to get the timing and angle right. Before any cooking begins, the crew can spend up to an hour getting the required video of the Iron Chef, the challenger, the chairman, and Alton Brown. And once the cooking begins, the 1-hour time limit seems to be more for television than anything else. There's no rushing around as seen on TV except specific hurried shots. Once the chef presents the dishes to the judges, the actual presentation can be shot up to 3 times to vary the angle. The judging can take up to 45 minutes. So what happens if you're batting second with your food sitting around for an extra hour? The sous chef, or sometimes even the producers, just recook a fresh, hot meal. Sometimes the judges aren't even tasting something prepared by the actual chef competing.
Man, this is wrong. This is so wrong.
No cancellation. In Japan, Iron Chef premiered in 1993 and ran until 1999. It was still quite popular at the time of its end, but traditionally in Japan, TV shows will end while still generating ratings, unlike in the US where we beat every horse dead. Iron Chef America, however, just sort of stopped showing up. That led most to conclude that Iron Chef America was canceled. In 2014, Food Network flatly denied Iron Chef America was being canceled, but there weren't any new episodes airing either. A few years later, we finally learned what was happening. A new Iron Chef program premiered on the Food Network called Iron Chef Gauntlet. Alton Brown served as the new chairman, but there was a twist. The show was just a limited series. Stephanie Izard won the 6-episode competition, defeating the combined powers of 3 Iron Chefs to earn herself the title of Iron Chef. Which doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot without a show to appear on, but hey, Iron Chef America is still not technically canceled, so at least there's that.
Excellent.
It's fun to watch master chefs in the kitchen, but who knew watching terrible cooks could be equally entertaining? Worst Cooks in America has become one of Food Network's most popular cooking competitions, and it's seen a lot of wild moments over the course of its 20 seasons. Once the contestants are selected, or as they're called on the show, recruits, they're isolated from the world for 4 weeks. Former contestant Michael Hayden told the News Times in 2013 that he had to take time off from work after he was selected for the 4th season. Hayden said, "All the contestants were sequestered in a house in Brooklyn. We weren't allowed any contact with the outside world. No cell phones, no internet, no TV, and definitely no cookbooks." It's not unlike other reality TV competitions, but it's debatable exactly how much the outside world could help if you've never learned basic kitchen skills. But unlike other famous shows that rely on drama between contestants, there aren't reports of behind-the-scenes romances or rivalries. It seems like everyone has gotten along just fine, despite being in competition for the same $25,000 prize. Anna Altamari, a 2011 contestant, told the OC Register, "There was no drama in our house." There's a good chance that even the worst cook you know isn't as bad as the contestants who make it on Worst Cooks in America. It's enough to make some viewers question the reality of the whole show. Reddit users suspect some of the contestants may be actors, simply pretending to be utterly clueless.
That would be an onion.
I thought I knew what an onion looked like, but apparently I do not.
One incident that seemed to make viewers believe it's all fake involved a contestant who used the dull side of a knife to cut food. A Reddit user pointed out, "Nobody is so inept in the kitchen that they use a knife upside down." Others questioned the show's validity during the celebrity seasons. The Jersey Shore's Mike the Situation Sorrentino was on Worst Cooks in America despite being known for his Sunday dinners he cooked up for the Shore's house. Sorrentino told Food Network before the season began that he wasn't the best or the worst chef, but was simply, quote, "not bad when it comes to basic Italian food."
I mean, I'd like to think it on the positive note that,
Casual viewers posting on sites like Reddit aren't the only ones with doubts. Contestant interviews with local newspapers and publications frequently return to the issue of the authenticity of contestants' ineptitude. The answer is yes, they can. In 2015, former contestant Holgi Forrester told the Desert Sun that she once tried and failed to deep fry a grilled cheese sandwich for a boyfriend that left her. She added that she never learned to cook because she thought it was a waste of time. Hayden from the 4th season told the New York Times that he would burn grilled cheese and undercooked chicken. When talking about her experience prior to appearing on the show in 2011, Anna Altamari told the OC Register that she never learned to cook because she lived at home with her mom and that, growing up in an Italian family, your mom spoils you. Altamari also shed some light on how bad cooks are verified as being awful from the start. They have you answer questions in different ways. It was a process. It was nonstop. You fill out paperwork, fill out questions. It was an ongoing thing, making sure you are really, truly who you are. The kitchen can be a dangerous place for anyone, but especially for people who aren't familiar with everything needed to cook a meal. And even more dangerous when those people are thrown into a high-pressure competition environment with sharp knives and fire.
doing a little dance with a knife in my hand.
In one series of highlights, a contestant who works as a certified safety inspector spotted hazards all around him, such as raised surfaces, open flame, and plenty of people who don't really know what they're doing. Judge and chef Anne Burrell has seen the full range of bad cooks over the past 20 seasons. She told Pop Sugar in 2013 that the contestants need to learn everything, which can lead to some hazardous situations. She said, "Yeah, some things are cringeworthy. I cringe when people are dangerous. When I'm scared they're going to hurt themselves, that's when I get nervous. Other things they do to food, instead of being cringeworthy, it's more eye-rolling. There are definitely some silly situations." While the competition portion of Worst Cooks in America typically gets the most attention for the high-pressure fails, the boot camp where the contestants learn is where things go awry. The chefs teach their groups of contestants how to use kitchen tools and which flavors go together. In a first-season episode, Chef Burrell showed the contestants everything they need to know about how to make a dish full of scallops, from the difference between a clove and a bulb of garlic to the proper way to devein a shrimp. Burrell told people, "We really put the recruits through the ringer. We ask a lot of them, and I tell people on the first day, whether you're here for a little bit of time or you're here all the way to the end, being on this show will change your life. If you leave boot camp without having learned anything, it means you didn't want to. Thousands of people put their names in the mix to be contestants in the regular season. The range of personalities was just as wide when it came to the celebrities chosen for the 6 celebrity editions. Oscar Nunez from The Office, Nolan Gould from Modern Family, and Catherine Bach from The Dukes of Hazzard have all competed. Reality TV stars are regular contestants as well, like Chris Soules from The Bachelor and Sonia Morgan from The Real Housewives of New York City. For the average contestant, the possibility of winning the $25,000 prize for being the best worst cook in America looms at the end of every season. But the winning celebrity contestant donates the money to a charity of their choice. Jenny J. Wow Farley won the first celebrity season and chose to donate the $50,000 to Pick Your Paw Animal Rescue. And Tanya Harding donated the money to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. In the latest celebrity season, former Bachelorette contestant Wells Adams won and donated $25,000 to the Nashville Humane Association. Any show that runs for 20 seasons is clearly doing something right. For Worst Cooks in America, the audience was present from the start. According to Cinema Blend, the first season premiere in 2010 helped draw Food Network's highest-rated and most-watched Sunday night, along with Super Chef Battle and Iron Chef America event, bringing in an average of 3.7 million viewers. But it proved harder to sustain high viewership. According to the Daily Meal, the show averaged 927,000 viewers between the ages of 18 and 49 in 2010. Over the years, the number of people who watch Worst Cooks in America has declined, with season premieres drawing the biggest audiences. Viewership numbers from ShowBuzz Daily show that the 2015 premiere had more than 2 million viewers, while the premiere in the second celebrity season in 2016 drew more than 1.1 million viewers. In 2016, Food Network decided to try and expand the Worst Cooks in America series with Worst Bakers in America. The first hosts were celebrity pastry chef Duff Goldman and TV chef Lorraine Pascal. The concept was pretty much the same as the original, but with the focus on baking. The contestants still went through a boot camp, and it focused on sweet and savory baked goods like sugar cookies and wedding cake decorations, and winners still receive a grand prize of $25,000. But Worst Bakers in America didn't have the same sticking power as Worst Cooks in America. The second season didn't come until 2019 and was hosted by Pascal and Jason Smith, who had previously competed in Food Network shows like Holiday Baking Championship and Food Network Star. The latest season forced contestants to blind taste test confections, guess baking ingredients based on touch alone, and decorate with a strict time limit, according to a press release. Season 20 of Worst Cooks in America was the most diverse yet and featured Domaine Javier, the first openly transgender woman to appear in a Food Network show. Javier didn't win the season, but she shared her experience on the show in a July 2020 Instagram post. Javier said, "The honor of becoming the first ever openly transgender woman in Food Network's history is extremely soul-stirring. Somewhere a lost person turned into Food Network, caught a glimpse of me, and told herself, 'I am who I am, and it's okay.' I can rest easy knowing I've made such impact. An impact significant enough for you to embrace my quirkiness and support me through the good and bad. Nothing goes unnoticed. I hope I made y'all proud." While her casting was a first for Food Network, it wasn't Javier's first time on screen or her first time making history. According to her IMDb page, Javier has 5 associate's degrees, a bachelor's and master's degree in nursing. Javier also became the first transgender woman in the U.S. to be named a homecoming queen in 2010. The following year, she was featured on MTV's True Life, and later found time to squeeze in small theater and TV roles in between her studies.
Which host left the show early and which hosts are bringing Iron Chef skills to the party? Keep watching as we take a look at the untold truth of Food Network's The Kitchen. Normally, The Kitchen is filmed in a studio in New Jersey. When the world went on lockdown thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic, the cast connected via Zoom to cook their favorite meals from home.
We are here in our kitchen. We're talking to you and showing you how to cook with our hearts from our homes.
Being at home meant the cast didn't have the resources at their disposal that they typically do while on the set of The Kitchen, but this didn't affect the quality of their work. The chefs shared tried and true recipes they've been making for years in the Quarantine Edition episodes, proving their skills to fans. The cast also continued cooking dishes based on various themes while filming separately, including an episode full of easy-to-make recipes for a whole week of eating that catered to viewers who were also in quarantine. Not only did the kitchen keep filming during the pandemic, but it caught the attention of a lot of viewers too. 2020 brought the kitchen their highest-rated premiere in over a year, according to Discovery, Food Network's parent company. It wasn't just the kitchen that performed well in 2020. Other Food Network shows like The Pioneer Woman and Chopped saw high ratings too, among others. Discovery's chief lifestyle brand officer told the New York Post that viewers seem to be moving closer to food programming during the pandemic because the network provided, quote, more than entertainment. As the world gradually opened up, though, the ratings declined, and Food Network's viewership has dropped significantly since its peak in May 2020, back to numbers similar to those before the pandemic. Like a lot of TV chefs, all of the current hosts of the kitchen have published at least one cookbook, all featuring different themes and dishes that showcase their kitchen skills. Chef Jeff Morrow has only published one cookbook called Come On Over, 111 Fantastic Recipes for the Family That Cooks, Eats, and Laughs Together. It was released in early 2021 and features his favorite meals to cook for a big group. Katie Lee has authored multiple cookbooks. Her most recent, It's Not Complicated, Simple Recipes for Every Day, gives readers easy recipes to take the hassle out of cooking. Sunny Anderson has just one cookbook, Sunny's Kitchen, Easy Food for Real Life, a cookbook. It contains recipes for comfort food inspired by her family roots and years of travel. Jeffrey Zakarian has written 4 cookbooks, including one specific to the Dutch oven and another that details how to best utilize your pantry. Alex Guarnaschelli has multiple cookbooks too. Her most recent offering is called Cook With Me, 150 Recipes for the Home Cook, a cookbook, and it details how her family has affected her life as a chef. Like many talk shows, the kitchen has had different lineups of hosts since it started. While Alex Guarnaschelli is part of the group now, she wasn't always. The original 5 were Jeff Morrow, Sunny Anderson, Jeffrey Zakarian, Katie Lee, and former Mexican Made Easy host Marcela Valladolid. Valladolid left after a few years with the cast of the kitchen to spend more time with her family, but she's stayed plenty busy since leaving the Food Network. She's worked on numerous projects since her departure, including hosting cooking classes via Zoom and writing a children's cookbook. Through everything she does, Valladolid's Mexican heritage shines through.
I wanted to take all that I grew up with, the cuisine and the culture and the complexities, and kind of filter it through my house and make it from there accessible to everybody.
Before the kitchen was even a thought at Food Network, Emeril Lagasse was entertaining viewers on Emeril Live, keeping them intrigued with his spices and catchphrases. Lagasse often had guests join him in the kitchen to share their skills. In 2005, he invited future The Kitchen host Sunny Anderson, and Lagasse cooked one of her recipes on the show. Years after her guest appearance on Emeril Live, Anderson and Lagasse reunited on former Food Network star Rachel Ray's show. At the time, Anderson said of her appearance on Lagasse's show,
"There are only a few moments like that in life where you can really remember them as being not only a defining moment, but a game changer."
Anderson's relationship with the Food Network began in earnest just a few years after appearing on Emeril Live. In 2007, she began hosting various shows of her own, including her series Cooking for Real, and continued doing so until The Kitchen premiered in 2014. Food Network chefs have been discovered many ways over the years, from restaurants to blogs. Eventually, though, the Food Network took things into their own hands with the competition series Food Network Star. Since 2005, the series has helped the network land several major talents, including eventual The Kitchen co-host Jeff Morrow. Starring on Food Network is a dream come true for Morrow. When asked in an interview with FN Dish about his involvement in The Kitchen, he said, "My dream was to have a talk show format where I can improvise, be funny, and cook all at the same time, while interacting with other people. So to me, it's a dream come true." Renowned chef Alex Guarnaschelli is a more recent addition to The Kitchen, but it is hardly her first experience with the Food Network. The seasoned chef has appeared on multiple Food Network shows, including Chopped, but one of her most memorable credits is for beating Bobby Flay in the competition show Beat Bobby Flay. Not a lot of chefs managed to top Flay, but Guarnaschelli came out on top with her version of Lobster Newburg. It was a triumph, but Guarnaschelli didn't have to beat Bobby Flay to prove her skills. Her resume speaks for itself. Fans of Guarnaschelli can find her on the Food Network for years to come. In 2019, the chef signed a deal with the network to co-host The Kitchen, judge contestants on Chopped, and be involved in other digital projects with Food Network. The Kitchen is usually food-related, but every now and then a surprise comes along, and something completely unrelated to food is discussed. Before shooting an episode in early 2020, host Katie Lee revealed to her co-hosts on set that she was expecting a baby.
We're gonna have a new member of the Kitchen family.
Lee is married to television producer Ryan Beagle, who she married in Italy in 2018, according to Vogue. The couple welcomed their first child, a daughter named Iris, in September 2020. Lee and her husband met because of food, as he was a producer on her show Beach Bites with Katie Lee, and as she told Interview magazine, the two fell in love because of food, specifically her roasted chicken. The hosts of The Kitchen are all talented chefs, but only 2 of them have earned the coveted title of Iron Chef. After Iron Chef aired in Japan, the Food Network brought it to America, and Iron Chef America saw hundreds of guests challenge notable chefs as well as The Kitchen co-hosts Alex Guarnaschelli and Jeffrey Zakarian to epic culinary battles. Guarnaschelli became an Iron Chef when she competed on and won the next Iron Chef Redemption in 2012. Guarnaschelli had competed for the title of Iron Chef previously on the next Iron Chef Super Chefs but was eliminated. Guarnaschelli kept a good attitude though, and noted in an interview that she would take some time to relearn forgotten skills and eventually earn the title. And she was correct. Zakarian earned the Iron Chef title after winning the next Iron Chef Super Chefs in 2011. After his victory, he described his time on the show to Atlantic City Weekly like this: "It was the most difficult and physically demanding thing I have ever done, and I hope to never do it again." Since he has the title, he probably won't have to compete again, and he doesn't need to. Both Zakarian and Guarnaschelli proved their Iron Chef status every week on The Kitchen. The Kitchen is on week after week, and it often invites guest stars to showcase their favorite recipes. Chefs, lifestyle gurus, actors, and talk show hosts have all joined the hosts of The Kitchen for special episodes. A friend of the hosts on The Kitchen, Food Network favorite Bobby Flay has been featured on a couple of episodes, including a special Cinco de Mayo edition where he competed in a round of Tool Takedown, a popular segment on the show. Host extraordinaire Martha Stewart visited for an episode too. She showed the co-hosts how to make her chocolate chip cookie icebox cake, which is just layers of cookie alternating with layers of whipped cream. The Kitchen doesn't only feature chefs as guests. Actor Daniel Radcliffe, best known for his eponymous role in the Harry Potter movie series, appeared in an episode where he assembled a burger by playing Build-A-Burger, a Twister-like game where toppings were chosen according to wherever the host's hands and feet landed. In another episode, talk show host Wendy Williams came on to share her love of cooking and taste some of the co-host dishes. Part of the fun of The Kitchen is that you never know who might drop by.
Bam! A beloved host who nearly burned down Emeril Lagasse's set. Fake kitchens, but very real departures. This is what you never knew about Food Network. Given how much television has changed in the past 20 years, it's hard to imagine a time when we didn't have our choice of hundreds, if not thousands, of different channels. But a time like that did exist. In the early 1990s, a couple of network executives were looking for a new idea for a broadcast outlet, and they landed on one entirely dedicated to food. In 1993, what we now know as Food Network hit cable television. According to Grub Street, when he heard the idea, Chef Emeril Lagasse said, "Wow, a whole channel devoted to that? That's pretty amazing." Our sentiments exactly. The network was originally called TV Food Network, as the name Food Network was already taken. It didn't take long for the TV broadcast outlet to gain popularity. Within just a couple of years, the station, which was run by CNN co-founder Reese Schoenfeld and his wife Pat O'Gorman, was garnering millions of viewers every night. As the New York Times reports, O'Gorman credited the network's success to the fact that you always have to eat. Before it was raking in millions of viewers and millions of dollars, the company was operating on a small budget and could only afford to air original programming. Chefs wanted a slot on the network because, as noted by some of the leading executives at the time, chefs in the United States weren't making the money that they do now. Appearing on Food Network was a great way to organically advertise for the restaurants. The outlet had no problem attracting top talent and received hundreds of audition tapes from chefs aspiring to bring their culinary genius to network television. Not all programming was successful though, and the network had to be creative in its ideas. Some of its successful programming included its Chef du Jour series and How to Boil Water. Food Network had to go through a lot of trial and error before landing on shows and chefs that were suitable for national television. One example is Emeril Lagasse, who, according to Grub Street, was told by Reese Schoenfeld, "The shows that you're producing for us right now are not good. You're fired. But we think that you're a great chef and a great cook and potentially could be a great teacher. Come to New York and let's visit. You're just not in the right environment." Schoenfeld was right, of course, and Lagasse became a Food Network staple for the next decade. Cooking can be dangerous. Chefs are surrounded by open flames and sharp knives. It is not for the faint of heart. In an attempt to bring real cooking experiences to life, Food Network has aired real injuries too. One of its most successful programs, Chopped, features chefs from around the country competing against each other, and it's resulted in some unfortunate incidents. One competitor, Chef More Amateur, sliced himself while using a food processor, forcing him to start his dish over. He also received a lecture from the judges over the mishap. Chef Amateur wasn't the first person on Food Network to suffer an injury on set, though. Back in the 90s, when the network was still young, Chef Mario Batali was also injured on set. He took to Larry King to describe what happened, noting that he cut his fingers while grating some carrots.
I thought that I would hide them, and I sunk them into a can of tomatoes to squeeze the tomatoes, and I pulled them out, and blood red is not tomato red.
Apparently, food processors and graters aren't the only hazards on Food Network sets. Unsurprisingly, there have been multiple fire scares as well. Though we presume the network operates with the utmost caution, where there's fire, and on a station that is dedicated to food, chefs are bound to come in close contact with a flame or two. One of the culprits is famed television chef Rachel Ray. Ray was with the network for years and grew to popularity by showing us all that food can be prepared quickly in her famous television show 30-Minute Meals. Before beginning with the network, she had to film a test, and she used Emeril Lagasse set. Nerves took over Ray, and instead of beginning to cook, she talked, letting her pan become very hot. When she eventually began to cook, she poured oil on the pan, which ignited a large flame and nearly set the kitchen ablaze.
I set Emeril's kitchen on fire.
Another fire hazard occurred on the set of Chopped, when a competitor, Chef Hema Gray, burned her hands on an open flame. Though she didn't nearly set any property on fire, she certainly did some damage to her skin. We like to think that all of the chefs on Food Network are friends who host amazing dinner parties and potluck buffets for each other, but unfortunately that is not the case. Though some of the chefs are legitimate friends like Reed Drummond and Trisha Yearwood, not all of them are quite so friendly. On the podcast Beyond the Plate, Giada De Laurentiis shared that after partnering up with Bobby Flay and losing on Iron Chef, she felt that he didn't take the competition seriously. She refrained from speaking to him again for 8 months. De Laurentiis said of Flay's attitude after the competition, "More than the loss, I was upset that he didn't seem to care." Regardless, she went on to explain that the two are close friends now. De Laurentiis isn't the only chef that Flay has rubbed the wrong way. During another Iron Chef episode, he highly offended fellow competitor Chef Masaharu Morimoto. In response to the incident, Morimoto said,
"By the way, he's not a chef."
We're not sure if it's Flay or the Iron Chef environment, but either way, he's been in some hot water with other chefs due to the famed competition. In the beginning, viewers were essentially limited to watching chefs cook, and while the network has stayed true to its roots, it's also expanded into other programming options like competition and travel shows. Even though there's still plenty of programming dedicated to improving viewer skills in the kitchen, there are some recipes we won't see on Food Network because they just take too long to make. Food Network producer Ashley Archer told Tribe Live, "I had to tell Chef Alex Guarnaschelli that she couldn't make the chocolate crostata, sort of Italian chocolate pie that she wanted to prepare. It just had too many components for a 30-minute show." Though we'd love to see Guarnaschelli bake a chocolate crostata, we understand the limitations. Filming a television show is difficult, especially one with food involved. Take Chopped, for instance. Though it's not a tutorial-based show, there are several moving parts involved in filming. It takes 12 hours to shoot a 1-hour episode, according to Grub Street. And those chefs aren't baking intricate Italian desserts. Perhaps one day we'll see Guarnaschelli bake her crostata on television, but until then, we'll just have to dream about it. Talent manager Shep Gordon once said to Grub Street of the pre-Food Network era, "At that time, there wasn't a chef in America making $100,000. Things have certainly changed. Although $100,000 is widely considered a great living, chefs today, particularly those featured on Food Network, have the ability to rake in millions per year. According to Forbes, some of the highest-paid TV chefs include Bobby Flay and Ree Drummond, both of whom have starred in multiple programs on the network over the years. However, no Food Network chef is raking in the big bucks quite like Guy Fieri, who signed what's thought to be the largest contract with the network ever, a reported $80 million for 3 years of work. Fieri is definitely earning his keep. The mayor of Flavortown stays busy hosting multiple shows for the network, including Guy's Grocery Games and, of course, his famed Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Food waste is a major issue in the United States. By simply watching Food Network, viewers can easily begin to wonder if it's contributing to the problem. But it's one show specifically that has some fans concerned: Cupcake Wars. The program is a competition show where competitors bake an excessive amount of cupcakes. Though it's fun to watch, it does seem like a major waste of food. Melissa Johnson, a senior challenge producer who worked on the show, said on the Marketplace podcast that some of the desserts are eaten by those on set. But donations can be tricky because there are many strict rules. Ultimately, a lot of it does get tossed out, but in some cases, the winning confections are put on display at events. Food Network has also used its programming to address the issue. In 2012, chefs Bobby Flay, Michael Simon, Anne Burrell, and Alex Guarnaschelli hosted The Big Waste, a special program dedicated to cooking with food that would otherwise go uneaten. Guarnaschelli has also written for the network, sharing tips on how to be more thoughtful with food choices while offering ways to minimize food waste at home. Though it's quite obvious that some TV chefs are in a studio, other cooks seem to be right at home. And we don't mean because of their familiarity around the kitchen. It looks like they're actually cooking in a home kitchen, but looks can be deceiving. Food Network has a studio in New York City, and most of the chefs travel to the Big Apple to film their shows. Emeril Lagasse told Grub Street that he used to venture to the city to film over a week's worth of shows in just one day. And Guy Fieri made his Guy's Big Bite set a haven of all his favorite things, as explained by Food Network. One exception is Ina Garten, the barefoot Contessa who, according to BuzzFeed News, filmed her show at her Hamptons home, even though she could have easily commuted from Long Island to New York City. But if we had a kitchen as functional and beautiful as Garten's, we'd make a film crew come to us too. When speaking to the New York Times, former Food Network producer Pat O'Gorman predicted that Food Network would stay popular, and she was correct. The station has remained a beloved television destination for those who want to learn to cook, discover a great dining destination, or watch a pastry chef's childhood Easter basket come to life. In fact, it's about the only station you can watch if you're interested in all three. The COVID-19 pandemic shook the world. People landed in front of their television sets, desperate for programming to distract them from everything that was going on. For some, that was Food Network. In May 2020, Kathleen Finch, a Discovery executive, told AP News, "People are gravitating to our networks and talent because we provide more than entertainment right now." The network's ratings increased by 25% in April 2020 compared to April 2019. Food Network remained successful in 2021, despite pandemic restrictions loosening and many viewers returning to their regularly scheduled programming. Network executive Courtney White stated, "All year long, Food Network has been committed to super serving our audience and inviting new fans to the brand, and we are thrilled with our 2021 success." Chefs on the network have come and gone, but some haven't left on the best of terms. Both Emeril Lagasse and the late Anthony Bourdain exited Food Network unhappily. Lagasse, as noted, was one of the first chefs to join the station, and he nearly became synonymous with Food Network. Best known for Emeril Live and Essence of Emeril, the man of many catchphrases left the cable network in 2007.
Don't touch that dial.
Insinuating that he might have stayed longer had he been welcome, he told GQ. When it ended, everybody felt like it was time for a little break. I didn't necessarily think that, but that's what everybody else thought, that maybe it was time for a break from Emeril. Bourdain, who's better known for Travel Channel's Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations, first filmed a similar show for Food Network called A Cook's Tour. After 2 seasons, he moved networks. It was never publicly announced why Bourdain left, but since he vocalized his thoughts on the network several times after leaving, we assume his exit was on bad terms. After all, according to Atlanta Magazine, he once said, "Ina Garten is one of the few people on Food Network who can actually cook." Ouch.